إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم ويبشر المؤمنين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, in this section now we're going to cover how is a language used. And the importance of this video here is that when we understand how languages are used, we'll understand what we need to focus on when we're learning a language, especially at the beginning. And this, inshallah, will be clarified throughout this video. So in linguistics, we learned that there are four language abilities, meaning that there are four different ways that a language is used. Okay, there are receptive skills and there are productive skills. For the receptive skills, you have certain skills that have to do with oracy, which is listening, right? Or you have a skill that has to do with oracy, which is listening, meaning it has to do with oral speech. And then you have one that has to do with literacy, which is reading. Then for the productive skills, you have speaking for oracy, and then you have writing for literacy. Meaning that when you're listening or reading, you're receiving language. You're not producing language, you're receiving language. But when you're speaking or writing, you're producing language. And then one of them has to do with oracy, the one has to do with literacy. Now, some linguists, they also mention a fifth competence, which is inner thinking, which is pretty much the language that you use to think with, right? Many of us may be bilingual or trilingual, but we only usually think in one primary language. And usually the language you think in is your strongest language, okay? But what's important for us right now is that these are the four language skills, okay? Now, why is it important to understand? Because bilingualism is of two types. Okay, and when we study bilingualism and apply linguistics, they teach us that bilingualism actually takes two different forms in a general sense. There's an active form and a passive form. An active form is someone who's able to do the productive skills of a language. So someone who is able to pretty much do all these skills, including the productive skills. So he's able to speak, he's able to write, he's also able to listen, he's also able to read. Okay. Or you might find someone who can speak and listen, but reading and writing, they cannot do so. Okay. So there's someone who is active. Okay. But someone who's passive is someone who's able at the receptive skills of a language. Meaning you'll find many people that can understand a language and they can read a language, but when it comes to speaking and writing that language, they're not as good. And in fact, that's usually the norm. Usually people that are bilingual or trilingual, they'll usually have one language that they're stronger in, right? While the other language, they might understand perfectly fine and read perfectly fine, but when it comes to speaking, they might find some difficulty in doing so, let alone writing, right? There are many people here that might have Somali or Urdu as their first language, but you go to university in English. If I was to tell you to write a paper on political science in Somali or in Urdu or in Pashto, you probably have a big amount of difficulty in doing that. You might not even be able to do it at all. Does that mean that you're not bilingual? Does that mean that you don't know your L1, your Somali, or your Urdu, or the language it may be? No, because the two wheels of bilingualism exist in different sizes and styles. Since someone can be able to speak a language, yet not write or read it. Okay, there's what Baker and Wright they mentioned. So what I'm trying to make us understand here is that bilingualism comes in different sizes and styles. The idea of the perfectly balanced bilingual, the individual that is fully capable at the same level in two different languages is more of a myth. In applied linguistics, we learn that that's more of a myth than a reality. Pretty much everybody that is bilingual or knows multiple languages, they're not the same level in all those languages because those languages are usually used for different purposes. Someone who speaks Somali at home or Urdu at home has no purpose to learn Somali in an academic setting. And that's the terminologies, the phraseology, the expressions that they use are expressions that are used inside the household, right? Even the vocabulary that they know is vocabulary that has to do with things inside the household, right? And that's just the reality of being a bilingual. People that come here from foreign countries to study, right? International students that come from China to study. When they come here, they're learning English for an academic purpose, and that's why in the hallways at your university, if most of the time these Chinese foreign exchange students or foreign students are speaking Chinese, or speaking Mandarin, I should say, right? When you go to, coffee shops or tea shops, if you see them, you're usually going to speak Mandarin, and their English is probably very horrible. Why? Because they might be very good at the passive skills of English. They can listen fine, they can maybe read fine, they might be trying their best to write. When it comes to speaking, they're not using that language for that purpose. They're just here to study, they're going to go back home, wherever that home may be. So this is important to understand because when we're learning a language, we have to understand that there are really two goals. There are two possible reasons for someone to learn a language. Someone who's trying to learn a language for an academic competence or academic purpose, and then someone who's trying to learn a language for an interpersonal purpose. Academic competence is learners who want to use their target language for an academic purpose. Think about again those international students that come here to study, engineering and English. They're learning English for an academic purpose, not for interpersonal competence, which is going and buying a coffee and a face-to-face contacts with other speakers. Now, can someone learn a language and have both of these as their goal? Of course. But we have a limited amount of time and we have a limited amount of energy. So we have to focus, right? Especially at the beginning of your studies, you need to focus on which one of these is the most important for you. If you want to be able to speak Arabic and buy coffees in Arabic at your coffee shop or speak to your friends in Arabic, you can do so. That's fine. Okay, but this is probably not the course for you because there's number one, the Arabic that the daily Arab is speaking is not the Arabic found in the Quran. They're speaking colloquial Arabic. They're speaking lahja. And every single Arabic country has their own lahja and has their own vocabulary pretty much. So you're gonna have to learn that specific lahja depending on which Arab country, which Arab friends you're hanging around with. Okay? And then likewise, sometimes the grammar rules are a bit different and so on and so forth. The foundation is usually Fusha, but the actual practical use of it is always this lahja. Okay. But if your goal is to connect with the speech of your creator, the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran, then academic competence is our main purpose. Okay. And you're in the right course. Now, there's nothing that says you can't start by academic competence, and then once you get strong in this, you switch to interpersonal competence. And that's what you should do. And that's what I recommend you do. Because any of those lahja, any of those dialects that Arabs they speak, again, the foundation of it is still Fusha Arabic, it's still classical Arabic. Okay. And inshallah, I'll put a few links to a few different videos where I explain the different dialects and I explain the difference between classical Arabic and colloquial Arabic and so on and so forth. I'll put that in a link below, inshallah. But our goal is an academic competence, which is connected with the Book of Allah, which is a book. Thus, our priorities are as so. Number one is vocabulary. That's specific to the field that we want to study. So I'm not going to teach you guys how to say apartment in Arabic and how to say different vegetables in Arabic. Now, there are some vegetables mentioned in the Quran, but you guys get the idea. I'm not going to teach you guys geography in Arabic. I'm not going to teach you guys mathematical terms in Arabic because that's not found in the Quran in a general sense. I'm going to try to teach you guys the vocabulary that's found in the Quran and the Sunnah because that's why you took this course. Then we're going to focus on reading because we primarily read the Quran. For listening, you're going to be hearing me speak Arabic or read Arabic, right? And inshallah, I'll give you guys later on some listening homework and different things you can listen to that will help you to learn Arabic. And then writing is after that our fourth priority. Okay, and then speaking is our last priority. Now, again, these are our priorities right now. After you finish this course and you can read the Quran and you can understand most of it, and you're starting to study books in Arabic and so on and so forth, you can start your journey for interpersonal competence. And I'll give you guys some resources for that. But our purpose for this course is academic competence, and this is what I want you guys to focus on right now. We have a limited amount of energy. We have a limited amount of time. We're going to have to focus on understanding the Arabic language specifically to connect with the Quran based on these priorities right here.
إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم ويبشر المؤمنين